Michelle here. Welcome to Dülon Paradis project. Just before Christmas, and it's a couple days after now, I was wondering what was Christmas like in Germany, what we know now as Germany, in the late 1700s, 1800 kind of time. So the translator we're using for the autobiography, Birgit Schweier-Duarte, I reached out to her because she was born in Germany, and you kind of know your own things that your own traditions and stories of your area. For example, I grew up in Montreal, so we have tortilla for Christmas Eve kind of thing. So she went looking and knowing the stuff that she knew, and she went looking, and I did some more looking, and between us we came up with a kind of pretty good ideas of what it would have been like for them. So it was mainly a religious festival at that point. There was no going out and shopping presents for everybody. There were presents. But they were tended to be sweets or nuts or something that were a little unusual, maybe some handmade gifts. And those were generally given out on December 6th, which was St. Nicholas Day, not December 25th. The tree right here, was coming into fashion, but that really didn't happen until the second half of the 1800s. So there were people at trees. Some people would decorate trees, usually with nuts and apples, and later candles, which were quite dangerous. Many a tree went up in flames, but it was certainly not widespread, and it was not all over the place. So there were some trees, but not like today. Now, I looked up a few dates of things. It was the night before Christmas, which was originally called A Visit from St. Nicholas, was written in 1823, before both of our musicians died, but just before. But you can glean a lot from that, because I always wondered two things when I was a kid. Why did they call him St. Nicholas and not Santa? Well, Santa, the name wasn't used yet. And why were these sugar plums dancing in their heads? And that would be some kind of sweet. They weren't looking for, PlayStations and stuff. They were looking for something they don't usually get, like sweets or chocolate or something. Now, they did talk about stockings being hung. Here's a little stocking, a big stocking, a bigger stocking, and a fancy-ish kind of stocking with Frosty, who also didn't exist back then. I mean, they might have made snow people, but they didn't have the Frosty story. They did have stockings, because he talks about stockings hung by the chimney with care, but they would have been socks. Even in my earliest memories of Christmas, my brothers would use like some of their skiing socks or something, a big, sock that fit quite a bit of stuff in it, but nothing like this. They would fit so much in it, right? So it was a very kind of pared down celebration. It was very, very much going to church. It was very much about the music. Bach, for example, earlier than them, wrote the Christmas oratorio. So musicians were very busy at Christmas time, as they are now, and they would be paid. So it was a time of work rather than a time of rest for them. Now, it was also a time of charity. So there was a lot of almsgiving, which just really means money and food to the poor. There was a lot of charity works and stuff like that. And so some of the blind musicians out there, not all of them were lucky enough to be in the noble class that our two musicians were. They might have been given some extra work to do, the other people. And even our guys, even though they were of noble class, they might have been, because they were perceived as, in that time, the way many people thought about blind people less than, they might have been given some opportunities that they weren't given otherwise, to play, or some extra money or something. But certainly a lot of the other blind musicians that were out there, probably would have got some help at that time and support. So it wasn't children oriented, like, you got, Santa comes and gives you gifts and for the kids and everything, and you better watch out, Santa knows whether you're naughty or nice. There was none of that stuff there. But they didn't really have big family feasts either. All that kind of started from the middle of the 1800s and continuing on until, what we have today, is which we've had pretty much for a long time with Frosty and Rudolph and Santa and all that kind of stuff. So I thought it was kind of interesting to think about what Christmas was for them and what they might have done. They certainly would have gone to church. They certainly would have played some music. They probably would have received some gifts on December 6th, St. Nicholas Day. But there was something I thought about too, was the song Silent Night. That was written in 1818 from words by, what's his first name? Morris, his last name, wrote the words in 1815. And in 1818, he went to Franz Gruber, in Franz Gruber's church, and asked him to write a melody to it. Now, the organ was broken in the church at the time, so all Franz Gruber had was a guitar. So he wrote the melody with his guitar to Silent Night. And it was, I venture to say, it's the first time, I could be wrong, that a Christmas song was premiered on Christmas Eve, with guitar and voice. But it would have been interesting, and there's a big long story about that. That would be a whole other podcast. It's a very interesting story, but it did fly across the world in quite a quick time, considering there was no internet, certainly no internet, no recordings, none of that stuff. So I know, being written in 1818, and our guys didn't die until 1824 and 1816, chances are they heard, played, and sang Silent Night. Chances are pretty good, I would say. I mean, it was first written and heard near Salzburg, which is pretty near Vienna, where von Paradis was living, and Dülon would be in Germany at that time. And so chances are they sang that song. So I think it's kind of cool that I can sit here going, hey, you know, I sang and played that song and they did. It was new to them, and it's not new to me, but we might have just enjoyed it in the same way because it's a beautiful song. Anyway, that's a little bit about what Christmas is like for our two musicians, Dülon and von Paradis. If you like this, press like and subscribe. Thanks a lot. Bye.